rated T to M. Hey, want to hear a PC Game Pass ad? I'll take your silence as a yes. Want new games on day one like Call of Duty Black Ops 6 or Stalker 2? I thought so. How about unlocking all the League of Legends champions when you link your Riot Games account? All for one low monthly price? Well, guess what? We got you. Learn more at xbox.com/PC Game Pass or click the banner. Stalker 2 available November 20th, 2024. Game catalog varies by region and over time. And that's the end of the script.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across America. I'm delighted to have you with me. The phone number is 877-973-7425. If you want to be on the program, as always, text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. You can subscribe, get the show notes, the podcast, the live stream, everything you possibly need. Now, we got to begin out of the gate. I'm going to get to the specifics of the Elon Musk-Donald Trump conversation at the bottom of this hour. Over 1 billion people on planet Earth have now engaged with it. You do have to be careful with the metrics there because, for example, a view on Twitter is considered like a 3 seconds passing through something. So if you're scrolling and there are 3 seconds of moving video on your screen, it's considered a view. So you have to be careful on the engagement numbers here, but a lot of people engaged with it, and he was humorous throughout. But I want to actually begin with the media reaction first, because I think one of the things that the Republicans just need to go on and do now is burn the bridges, burn the ships, and go to war with the American press corps as a way to go to war with Kamala Harris and the Democrats. Because it is increasingly clear across media outlets, most members of the press corps are actually at war with the Republicans. So yesterday on the show, I talked about a conversation you had on the stage at the gathering about China, how China's already at war with us. China's already uploading malware into our servers for the power grid, for water treatment facilities. They're putting cameras on towers and windmills near military installations. They're buying land. There have been incursions of military-aged Chinese men in the country, some actually escaping China, but some maybe for nefarious purposes. They're monitoring Chinese citizens here with quote-unquote police stations. The Chinese are at war with us. The American press corps is at war with Republicans. Increasingly, the press corps, as its older members of the press corps have aged out and younger members have come in, they're social justice, activist-driven agents of change for the left. They have no desire to be fair in how they cover stories, and you see this across networks. I love CNN and have great relationships with people there, probably making a lot of them mad with this monologue. But CNN reporters and MSNBC reporters and New York Times reporters, the Washington Post reporters, the entirety of the National Press Corps leans left, has a bias towards the Democrats against not just Donald Trump, but the Republicans as a whole. And they have rationalized it as their problem is Donald Trump. And since Republicans won't stand up to him, their problem is with them. But let me give you just a case in point example here of CBS News. CBS News, when Donald Trump announced that he was going to go to war and demand no taxation on tips. This is how they tweeted it. Former President Donald Trump's vow to stop taxing tips would cost the federal government up to $250 billion over 10 years, according to a nonpartisan watchdog group. That was June 17th. June 17th, when Donald Trump said no taxes on tips, CBS News puts up this tweet and story that if he does this, it's going to cost billions. It's not good policy. Now Kamala Harris has come out and said she doesn't want to tax tips. This is CBS News' tweet. Vice President Kamala Harris is rolling out a new policy position, saying she'll fight to end taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers. That's how CBS News covered this on social media. Remember when Donald Trump was shot, Margaret Brennan on CBS News and what's her name on CNN were both lecturing Donald Trump on how you didn't make some conciliatory statements right after being shot. CBS News, particularly their social media agents, are progressives spinning things for the Democrats. But it's not just them. Just wait. So here's the conversation on CNN about the taxes. Just listen to this.
Top concern for so many voters. I don't know how much it will quiet the consternation from Republicans as she's not focusing enough on policy. Oddly enough, one of her first policy visions that she announced on Saturday in Nevada before the Culinary Union, which endorsed her, a major player in that state, was to eliminate eliminate taxes on tips for hospitality workers. And of course, the former president has been talking about that for weeks, so that's getting a lot of attention. But she's also been talking about
Wait. That's a national political correspondent for CNN. By the way, it's Nevada, not Nevada. That's a national political correspondent. One of her first rollouts is this no taxes on tips for hospitality and service industry workers, which, of course, Donald Trump has been talking about for some time. So wait, if it was a Republican who said that on television, I know because this has happened to me on CNN. If it was a Republican who did that, they would be interrupted and say, no, this is is it not notable that she's copying a Donald Trump policy? But you're not interrupting the reporter who's playing it off as this is her own unique idea. By the way, Donald Trump's been talking about this, but this is her policy position. You should be going to war with this, Republicans. It's not just that. This is a Washington Post reporter who has White House access, who is upset that Elon Musk would have the audacity to interview Donald Trump. What Karine Jean-Pierre says in the White House press briefing to this reporter is not as important as the fact that a White House reporter had the audacity to ask this question.
Elon Musk is slated to interview Donald Trump tonight on X. I don't know if the president is going to tune in. Feel free to say if he is or not. But I think that misinformation on Twitter is not just a campaign issue. It's a America issue. What role does the White House or the president have in sort of stopping that, or stopping the spread of that, or sort of intervening in that? Some of that was about campaign misinformation, but it's a wider thing, right?
Yeah, no, I know.
Okay. You have a Washington Post reporter, which is a news organization that is a propaganda outlet for the terrorist group Hamas these days. Remember, it's the Washington Post that was dismissive of claims that UNRWA employees were working as agents of Hamas. The Washington Post was dismissive of that. Turns out it was true. Washington Post said it wasn't. It was the Washington Post that was giving casualty figures in Gaza that they refused to note were coming from Hamas as propaganda figures, and only after public shame did they walk it back. It is the Washington Post that repeatedly publishes misinformation to damage Israel, make Hamas look good, and you have a Washington Post reporter saying, oh, misinformation, it's such a bad thing out there. What's the White House going to do about Elon Musk? You have a Washington Post reporter who, never mind the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, thinks that the government should have the power to censor Americans. In fact, it's worth playing Karine Jean-Pierre's reply.
I've heard us talk about this many times from here, about the responsibilities that social media platforms have when it comes to misinformation, disinformation. Don't have anything to read out from here about specific ways that we're working on it, but we believe that they have the responsibility. These are private companies, so we're also mindful of that too. Look, it is. I think it is incredibly important to call that out as you're doing. I just don't have any specifics on what we have been doing internally as it relates to the interviews, and that's something that I'm tracking, and I'm sure the president's not tracking it either.
Good for her to note it's not the government to step in there. Listen to Casey Hunt on CNN on this.
Donald Trump finding a new ally this election, billionaire Elon Musk. The two men are set to appear on the platform formerly known as Twitter, now X, later tonight for what Musk is promising will be a, quote, unscripted and no limits conversation. Trump is now getting used to the fact that Musk endorsed him shortly after the assassination attempt, even though he's been critical of SpaceX and the Tesla CEO in the past.
And I'm for electric cars. I have to be, because Elon endorsed me very strongly, Elon. So I have no choice.
Musk's rise as a Trump backer comes as X has turned into a haven for the spread of misinformation. Since buying the site almost 2 years ago, Musk's site has struggled to control it on topics ranging from the election to the assassination attempt against Trump. Sometimes the bad information has been boosted by Musk himself, who posted a conspiracy regarding the attack on Paul Pelosi in October of 2022 before deleting it.
Okay, so you got that? So let's go to war on Elon Musk for things he's done and said on the platform. Bad guy for sometimes taking the bait on his own platform. Remember, it's a platform for misinformation. Dun, dun, dun. So scary, so scary. This also was, who was it now? This was an Axios reporter who was Sarah Fisher from Axios. Listen to this one again. This is another conversation yet again on CNN about Elon Musk and Donald Trump talking.
Expect out of this conversation that we're going to see tonight on Twitter?
Well, for one, I think it's going to be a very lighthearted conversation. Because Elon Musk has come out and endorsed Donald Trump, I expect this to be like a bromance type of an interview where they're supporting each other. I think that Elon Musk will let Donald Trump speak all of the falsehoods and misinformation that he wants. I mean, he's not a journalist. It's not his job necessarily. Does he want to be fact-checking all of the information? So I think it's just a platform for Donald Trump to come out and say whatever he wants. But the thing to remember, Cassie, is like the interview audience here is what Donald Trump needs. You see J.D. Vance going on Face the Nation, right? Sunday shows, traditional media, because he needs to get his name out there. Donald Trump's going the opposite route, right? He's talking to streamers and podcasters. He's going on X. He wants to rally up that sort of fringe online base. That's what Donald Trump is doing here tonight.
You got it. It's the fringe online base. That's, by the way, where all the reporters are these days. They're on X. MSNBC, one more.
Ensuring that it's an immediate way to refute anything false, are the exact words he said. None of them carried one of those community notes, and begs the question, is he suppressing notes on his own posts so that he's not showing his own users? But it does appear clear that he's abusing his privileged position to sow disinformation that generates discord and distrust in the electoral process.
So the entire media now turning their sights on Elon Musk because Elon Musk has endorsed Donald Trump. And Elon Musk allowed Donald Trump to come on the platform. If the media is willing to turn all of their firepower on Twitter and Elon Musk for his support of Donald Trump, Republicans should do the same. I saw Jonathan Martin, who's with Politico, nice enough guy. He's talking about how, he was citing a Jonathan Chait piece from New York Magazine, how actually the bias in the press favors Donald Trump. Now, here's the argument that they both believe, that bias in the press favors Donald Trump because they work to normalize Donald Trump, to keep him within the 40-yard lines so that he seems more mainstream than he actually is. You got to live in a bubble if you think 76 million Americans are somehow outside Normalsville, outside the 40-yard lines. They're to the outer edge in politics. Jonathan Martin, by the way, is the guy who wrote the piece back in February lecturing Republicans that you're crazy to think the Democrats would ever replace Kamala Harris. In fact, Jonathan Martin and the news outlets that he worked for went overboard in dismissing Republican concerns about Joe Biden. We've just seen 3 years of the American Press Corps covering for Joe Biden. They're now doing the same for Kamala Harris. They're playing up that Donald Trump slurred his words in his 2-hour conversation with Elon Musk last night. Pay no attention to Joe Biden slurring his words. Pay no attention to Kamala Harris refusing to answer questions. If you want to go after Kamala Harris, you should go after the media as well, Donald Trump. You should wage war on the press, burn bridges with the press. They already hate your guts. Burn bridges with the press, turn them into an object as campaign operatives of the Democrats, and repeat that over and over and attack them in your ads, showing how they tried to gaslight America covering for Joe Biden. And now they're doing the same for Kamala Harris, including trying to revise their own comments about her being the border czar. It is very clear from the CBS tweets about the tax policy on tips to the media's coverage of Kamala Harris's border czar. They are working overtime to protect her. They are the enemy. You might as well treat them as such. And when you attack Kamala Harris, highlight how her friends in the media are doing everything they can to lie, cheat, and steal for her. AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry. Everybody's talking about it. Billions of dollars invested, so buckle up. The problem is AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud. Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, Databricks, Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/Erickson, ERICKSON. That's oracle.com/Erickson. Oracle.com/Erickson. Go check them out today. Yes, you can. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here, 877-973-7425. If you text the word data to 33777, you can subscribe to the daily email, get a great discount as well. I want to bring up the issue of the European Union and Elon Musk. So Elon did the interview with Donald Trump last night. More conversation with Donald Trump. The European Union sent him a letter worried about the possibility of people from the European Union being able to tune in and hear misinformation from Donald Trump since he wouldn't be fact-checked in real time. Now, you got to understand that the European Union does not have a First Amendment and does not value speech the way we value speech. And increasingly, you see progressives in this country also value speech less and less. The theologian Francis Schaeffer, in one of his books, now I can't remember, was it The God Who Is There? I can't remember. One of his books, he noted that trends in Europe, societal trends in Europe, trickle into the United States after about 30 years. And in fact, about 30 years ago, during the Blair era, the rise of the Blair era in Great Britain, you began to see devaluing of free speech in Great Britain, but also in Europe as a whole. It's gotten stronger and stronger over time. It's not a coincidence we're seeing it trickle into our elite in this country 30 years later. They despise that you can say anything in this country. There are consequences for defamation in this country, but they can get away with most things. It's very notable to see the elite in this country following Europe. But the thing is, in this country, that we have Supreme Court precedents that we're not going to extradite Elon Musk were he to get indicted over there for saying something that he has free speech to do here. But can you really believe that this administration would protect an American citizen who they don't like because he exercised his free speech rights in a way they don't like? I got concerns about our government picking favorites in this stuff when they shouldn't. But the EU, of course, and the British now, they deeply despise the free speech right. You got old Prince Harry over here lecturing us on free speech. He should just go home. Free speech sets us apart, makes us unique, and it's a good thing. Now, another great thing out there is, of course, one of my fantastic advertisers that you should be partnering with in various ways. And one of the best ways to partner with Hillsdale College is to support their effort to expand classical education across the country. You can sign up for Imprimis as well. It's completely free, y'all. In fact, if you go to ericforhillsdale.com, you can make a tax-deductible donation to Hillsdale College and put in your address. You'll start getting Imprimis completely free. It is thought-provoking. I get it all the time. I've been getting it since I was in law school. Imprimis is great. Hillsdale College is fantastic. And their K through 12 program that they've got, I realize they're a college. You can support the college too, but they're doing a classical education program for elementary and secondary schools for public, private, charter, and homeschools. And it's a brilliant program, but they've got to have donor support. It's a tax-deductible donation. You can go to ericforhillsdale.com today, ERICK. You say you want to affect the minds of America and get out of indoctrination, you should be supporting this project from Hillsdale at ericforhillsdale.com. Go check them out. Support them today. Greetings. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. The phone number is 877-973-7425 if you want to be on the program anywhere in the nation. Likewise, if you text Eric, ERICK, to 33777, you can sign up for the show notes, the podcast, the live stream, so much more. I want to talk about the Elon Musk, Donald Trump. I'll call it a conversation more than an interview. It was not meant to be some sort of media interview, and Trump should, it just reaffirms in my mind that he should stop doing the wild streamers no one's really heard of and do a Joe Rogan, although he did attack Joe Rogan, so he probably burned that bridge. I don't know. And the Elon Musk one was fine, although just to begin with, it is kind of funny to me that it collapsed. Elon Musk claimed there was some massive denial of service attack on Twitter. Essentially, that's where a bunch of people or a computer generates a bunch of requests at one time. It overwhelms servers and brings down the servers. What was happening was a whole lot of people were trying to get in. That it wasn't a denial of service attack. It doesn't look like to me. It looks like that was what he was claiming. It was actually the server load couldn't handle the amount of people coming in. That same thing happened with Ron DeSantis when Ron DeSantis was on. Now, the funny part is that a lot of the Trump supporters bitterly mocked Ron DeSantis for launching his campaign this way. And the same thing happened to Trump last night, and those same people were making excuses for it. Nonetheless, the conversation was good. It was a 2-hour conversation. Yes, sounded like Donald Trump's dentures were loose or something. People were like, oh, he's slurring. Listen, the same people making that the lead story, that Donald Trump was in some way slurring, have excused Nancy Pelosi's slurs forever and have denied that Joe Biden did something. Again, go to war with members of the press for their double standard. But his answers for much of it were actually somewhat humorous. He came across as very relatable. This is Trump talking about that famous slide he was turning his head to look at when he got shot.
Well, and I mean, speaking of the sort of slide that got you to turn, that saved your life, really, was the illegal immigration slide. Maybe this is worth talking about that.
It was
that slide saved your life.
No, the illegal immigration saved my life. You're right, but it had to be at that exact angle.
I mean, that's a great one. saved by illegal immigration.
You know, the incredible thing, though, when you talk about the odds, you had to be exactly at that angle.
Look, illegal immigration saved Donald Trump's life. It's a funny line. Now, I realize the scowls in the press and on the left, they have no sense of humor. They can't laugh at it, but it was a funny line. There was also this exchange with Elon and on food prices.
You know, with all of that being said, to me, that's so important, the most important. But with all of that being said, the election's coming up, and the people want to hear about the economy and the fact that they can't buy groceries because they don't have enough money to buy groceries. The inflation has killed them. Food prices are up 50, 60, even 100% in some cases. And this stupid administration allowed this to happen, and it's a shame. And that's the thing that people most care about, in my opinion. They care about the border a lot, and we discuss the border at great length. It's nice to have a forum like this where I can discuss something at length. And by the way, you think Biden could do this interview? Do you think that Kamala could do this interview?
Look, he's right. Biden could not. You know, I made this point yesterday. People were saying, Mitch McConnell, what did he freeze on stage? No. I interviewed Mitch McConnell on Friday. He spoke for 30 minutes, unscripted, no notes, no advanced screening of the questions, no topic off limits, threw all sorts of different topics at him, and he handled himself well with very little stutter or just nonstop conversation and quick witticisms. Joe Biden couldn't do that. He couldn't do what Donald Trump did with Elon Musk last night. This goes back to my point that Donald Trump should go into the swing states and do local market interviews. he handled himself well with Elon Musk last night. He should do some local market interviews. He should go into the mid-market cities in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, maybe even North Carolina. And he should target mid-markets. You're not talking L.A., New York, D.C., Chicago. You're talking Traverse City, Grand Rapids, Pittsburgh, Philly, Harrisburg, Eau Claire, Madison, Milwaukee, Atlanta, Savannah, Valdosta, Macon, Columbus, Phoenix, Tucson, Flagstaff, Carson City, Reno, Lake Tahoe area, Las Vegas. Larger markets, mini mid-markets. He should be having conversations with people there. Go on their local morning talk radio stations. Find their conservative talk radio show host. Find the local anchor that people know behind the scenes privately is a conservative. Most of them are. Skip ABC, CBS, NBC. But also skip random streamer on Twitch. You can do Elon to a degree because the press is really going to pay attention to an Elon Musk interview on Twitter because they're all on Twitter. You have 1 billion people around the world who paid attention in some level of engagement, enough to crash the site. Do Joe Rogan if you can, the most listened to podcaster out there. But you got to go to those mid-markets. Because again, and this is very important. I realize ad nauseum, but this is very important. You know where most people get their political information? Most people get their political information from the evening news still. If you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s, you go home from work, you want to catch up on what's going on, you will get on the internet, but you'll also turn on your local news, not the national news, but the local news, because you want to find out what's going on in your community. You don't care about Washington. You don't care about the world. You care about what's going on in your backyard. So you tune in to the local newscast at 5 or 6 o'clock. The local anchor is your friend. You know the weather forecaster. You've seen him in town. That's who you tune into. So give that anchor an exclusive interview. And you rotate around. And you do the ABC affiliate. And you rotate around. And you come back another week and you give one to the CBS affiliate. And you rotate around. And you come back and give one to the NBC affiliate. You rotate around. Come back and give one to the Fox affiliate. Dote on them. Build relationships with them. Get your message out of them. Kamala Harris isn't going to do that. Kamala Harris isn't going to do anything like that. What's also notable here is the level of desperation. Donald Trump has got back on Twitter for the first time in a long time. He did it to be able to do the interview with Elon Musk. He started his campaign started tweeting again from his account. If Donald Trump felt like he were comfortably ahead, he would not be doing that. The reality is, as much as you can say, if you want to say it, that the polling is wrong, the Trump campaign is acting like they believe they're back in a very tight fight for his political life against Kamala Harris. It's not me saying the polling is right. It's Trump's behavior saying the polling is right. And Kamala Harris has continued to eke up on him. The polling had been all Trump all the time. And now, with the exception of CNBC and Rasmussen, which I'm dismissive of as a biased report, biased pollster, Ipsos is Harris up 2, Morning Consult is Harris up 3, Survey USA is Harris up 3, NPR is Harris up 3, I Tip is Harris up 1, CBS News is Harris up 1. The Democrats have Daily Kos is Harris up 4, the Rasmussen on the right has Trump up 5. There's only one independent pollster that has Trump up 2. That's CNBC, and that's registered voters, 1,001 registered voters. The likely voter models are worse for Trump right now. By the way, totally recoverable. You just got less than 90 days right now. That's why Donald Trump is pulling out the stops. He's doing these interviews. That's why he's going back on Twitter. He's trying to get his message out everywhere. But you still got to have a message. You still got to have a message. I personally think we had the caller from Alabama yesterday. And he said something that has continued to resonate with me, and I think that it's probably Chad from Montgomery who's right on this, that next week Donald Trump needs to rest. Normally, the campaigns take the week off of the other side's convention. Next week is going to be the Democratic National Convention. Typically, the Democrats stand down during the Republican convention. Republicans stand down during the Democrats. Now, that hasn't happened so much this year. The Republican convention, the Democrats were campaigning. But typically, that's the way it does it. It gives the candidate a week of rest. And Donald Trump needs to rest. And he needs to spend that week recalibrating his message. Because right now it's very scattershot, and in the last 80 days of the race, it needs to be focused. And keep in mind, in about 30 days, early voting starts. In about, 60 days, 50 days, the first presidential debate with Kamala Harris and not Joe Biden. He's got to focus. He's got to focus. But he's also got a campaign. Take off next week, let J.D. Vance have the sweat equity. And you focus and you rest and you try to remember you've got to hold your message down. I continue to believe, and I said this to you guys yesterday, I continue to believe that we can't fully process the traumatic nature of him getting shot for the world to see. The New York Times photographer captured the bullet after it had flown through his ear. And you still have so many people out there saying he didn't get shot. There's no way he got shot. All of these people who know nothing about the caliber of the ballistics, like, well, if it was an AR, it would have blown his ear off. No, not really. It's not true. Not with the caliber bullet fired. You do understand, don't you, for those of you who don't know, that in many states you can't hunt deer with the bullet that Donald Trump was shot with. Why? Because it's not enough to kill the deer. You can wound the deer, but you can't kill the deer. It's too small. I don't think people understand. Most of the people who bellyache about guns don't know anything about guns in the first place. They call it a clip instead of a magazine. But there sure are experts on whether or not Donald Trump was shot or not. Yeah, I think he's rattled. I do think he's rattled. Doing these interviews with Musk, if he can find a way in with Joe Rogan and rebuild the bridge that he may have burned the other day. So if you didn't hear about it, there was a rumor that Joe Rogan was endorsing Robert Kennedy, and Donald Trump went ballistic on Joe Rogan on social media. Trump supporters everywhere eviscerated Joe Rogan. I mean, it was just the turn of the cult. It was wild. Turns out it wasn't true. Trump's got to walk that back, build that relationship. Stop wasting your time on random streamer on Twitch. Do big stuff or do local stuff. There's time to do it. But let me end here. He was personable with Elon Musk. He was funny. He was normal. He said things that excite his base, like getting rid of the Department of Education, something he unilaterally can't do, but he can try. He was engaging. The illegal immigration safety joke, there's a very funny line. He pointed out how Kamala Harris doesn't want to answer the tough questions, and he's willing to go for 2 hours. That Joe Biden couldn't do that, Kamala Harris wouldn't do that. I think that sort of putting him in those settings is good. I don't know how many people, Elon, that tuned in of the billion are actually voters or will actually pay attention. How much of it was just unifying the base, kind of exciting the base, things like that. Yeah, I do actually wonder about that. There need to be some level of metrics. Don't put him in interviews where you've got 1 million listeners and none of them are registered to vote, not going to vote. That's a waste of time. But there's a way to move forward with these sorts of interviews that actually help Donald Trump, because right now, remember, Kamala Harris isn't. So the more Trump and Vance are out flooding the zone and Kamala Harris isn't, the more I think it actually winds up helping them. Americans for Prosperity is out flooding the zone, doing door knocking, trying to get people out to vote, register to vote, take meaningful action. They're training up their volunteers how to be great activists as well. You can join them at AmericansForProsperity.org. AmericansForProsperity.org. They're the largest and leading grassroots group in the country. They don't just have a think tank in D.C. where they trade white papers. They actually go into the states and actually do the business of the conservative movement. They go door to door with their activists. They train them up to be door knockers. They train them to be artists of persuasion. They train them to go to their local government and their state government to engage with their local and state government in order to affect public policy and move it to the right. They support free markets and free people. They support families. They support school choice. One of the leading advocates for school choice in the United States of America. If you want to get involved with them, learn how to be a great conservative advocate for issues you care about. Learn how to explain those issues to your neighbors in a persuasive forum so your neighbors vote with us and that you're the most informed person in the room. Go to americansforprosperity.org, americansforprosperity.org. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, two things. One, it looks like Ukraine's invasion of Russia has actually paid off some. I've been scratching my head, to be honest with you. I don't know if y'all have heard about this, but Ukraine invaded the Kursk region of Russia. It was a surprise attack. They covered 380 some odd square miles of territory, and it has forced the Russians, who were advancing quite quickly in the Donetsk region of Ukraine, to pull back forces and reroute them back to Russia. I was scratching my head like, well, what the heck is going on here? Why do this? But now it suddenly seems like it paid off. So good for them. The other thing is the Israeli situation. So we're headed into a Jewish holiday, and it's looking very likely that an attack is coming any hour now from the Iranians. What has tipped off the Americans and the Iranians, or the Americans and the Israelis, is that they have seen now movement of missiles out of storage in Iran, a large number of missiles. And the thinking is that there is going to be a collaborative attempt between the Iranians and Hezbollah to begin firing on Israel concurrently. The question is, will Israel and the United States together be able to stave off an attack? And I don't know. We'll figure out. I'm not sure. I hope so. But it sounds like it could be in a very aggressive play. Now, maybe, just maybe, there's diplomacy behind the scenes. Maybe Iran could walk it back. The problem, however, is that the United States seems to be signaling to Israel, you got to tie one hand behind your back and restrain yourself in a response. And I don't know that that's the most effective path forward. It's the one that the Biden administration seems to be insisting upon, which I just think is very foolish. And I wish they would reconsider, but they won't, because remember, the Biden administration is infiltrated by a bunch of pro-Iranian sympathizers. I'm going to spend more time on this later in the show, but I just want you to be aware of the fact that as things are playing out right now, it's a pretty dangerous situation up there. Not to oversell you on pending Armageddon, but at the same time, we need to be focused on this, praying for this situation, because it's not looking good over there. It really will depend on the Iranian response. And unfortunately, our administration continues to send so many mixed signals to Iran and Israel and everyone else over there. Now, when we come back, I want to actually get a little more explicitly into the campaign. In particular, that the Republicans are spending way more time talking about Tim Walz's record than they are Kamala Harris. And that's actually problematic, because very few people are going to go vote for Tim Walz for vice president. They're going to go vote for Kamala Harris for president. And every minute you spend talking about Walz, who I am going to talk about, is a minute you're not spending on Kamala Harris. And Republicans, myself included perhaps, are getting too online in the reckoning of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and how to proceed.